everybody, it's Dana and welcome back to day 4. Today we're going to do a rainbow-esque card using products from MFT. So I have Red Hot, Lemon Drop, Sour Apple, Summer Splash, and Tropical Teal as my colors today. Love this color palette, especially for a happy Christmas card. And I'm using the Season's Greeting stamp set and coordinating dies. So let's go ahead and get started. So to start, I'm going to bring in my mini Misty because I want to stamp out that adorable little cottage. The little cottages of houses, or maybe it's a castle. I think it's a castle. Well, it's my castle. That's what it's Dana's castle now. It could be a cottage, it can be a castle, but today it's a castle for me. It's been like one of those kind of days, so a castle it is, or chalet. I'm going to put that into my Misty, and I'm going to stamp this out with some Memento TUXEDO black ink. This is going to be a super quick card. It's going to be super quick, and I'm going to have a chance to do 2 of these puppies today. So, you know, we have a bonus. I went ahead and stamped that down, and my ink pad is a tad bit dry, so I am going to double stamp this. Now, what makes this card really easy and simple is that I'm not going to have a lot of color to it. You'll see that as we get into the card, but I'm not going to do a lot of coloring with this one because this one will be totally easy for me to mass produce. I like a color combination that includes teals and reds. That is my favorite. It's my go-to during the holidays. But this year I kind of want to add in a couple more fruity looking colors to, you know, spice it up just a little bit. Now, since I have my image stamped out, I'm going to line up the coordinating die. I'm going to remove that top part. I just want the bottom part. So we're going to be doing some partial die cutting. Now, partial die cutting is really easy to do. Sometimes it's a little bit intimidating for me, but I've kind of gotten the hang of it, and now I'm not so afraid to do it. And like I always say, it's only paper. If I mess it up, I just stamp again and start all over. After I have my die lined up, I am going to grab myself some purple tape just to hold this in place. I really don't want this to shift. So I'm just going to make sure I have that exactly where I want it, and then I can go ahead and place down that purple tape. Now the purple tape is just going to hold it in place, so when I run it through my die cutting machine, it does not end up slipping. My plates are well loved in my die cutting machine, so sometimes it could be a little bit warped, so I do want to make sure that this die stays in place. Now I can bring in my die cutting machine. Now I'm using the Spellbinders Platinum 6. I'm not quite sure what the sandwich would be if you were doing it in another machine, but I have my platform, a clear embossing cutting mat, and then another one I'm going to put on top. But I'm only going to line it up to the part I want to cut. So you'll see I'll go ahead and slide in that top plate, and I'm moving it so it's only going to cut the top part, the part that's underneath that plate. The part where the plate is not touching is not going to cut. So I'm going to bring this in so you can kind of see. Where I'm lining up that plate is the only place where it's going to cut. So everything to the left is going to cut. Everything to the right is not going to cut. And that's going to give me a nice little place to put my sentiment when we get to that part. So I can go ahead and run that through the machine. And again, I said my plates are very well loved. I won't call them warped. I'll just say they're well loved. I'll go ahead and run it through my machine. And then when I lift this off, you'll be able to see that only the top part of this image has been die cut out. So I can peel that back. And as you can see, just the top part right there. And I'm going to trim that off because I don't need that. So I can just trim it off on the sides. I'll just grab a pair of my Fisker scissors, and I'm just going to kind of trim it so it kind of looks like a snowbank. Now I'm looking at that piece and I'm thinking that's a church. So it's my castle with my church behind it. So now I can use the bottom part to put my sentiment, but we're going to start working at the top of this. So I'm bringing a piece of white cardstock, And behind that scene, I want to do a pretty, like almost Northern Lights kind of look. So I am taking a pencil and I'm lightly tracing around where I cut with that die cut. I just want to have like a little mark to show how far I have to bring down my ink. So you probably can't see it. I'm going to tilt it up, but I really don't think you can see my lines here. But I just have a light pencil line where that die is going to meet up. Now here we bring in the gorgeous color. So again, this is like a rainbow-esque kind of card, and I'm going to call it like my Rainbow Northern Lights. So what I'm going to do is take each ink cube and swipe it up on the paper. So I turn my card, and then where that line is where I need to make sure I have ink. So I'm coming right down to that line and I'm just swiping that ink pad. That's going to kind of give me like that borealis kind of look where like lights are going up in the sky. I used to live in Alaska and they were beautiful, absolutely beautiful, the Northern Lights. So this is like my Rainbow Northern Lights. So I started with the yellow, the red and the yellow, but I'm going to go down to that teal color because I want to kind of gauge where the rest of my color is going to be. So I'm going to bring in that teal, and now I can kind of see how much I have left to add in the green and the lighter blue. So that's just a good way. So I just don't run out of space in order to add that darker color. So I'm going to go back in with that yellow and kind of bring it over a little bit further. And then I can drag it into the green into that, which is going to give me another shade. It's going to give me another like yellowy kind of green. And then I can bring in that, I think that was Summer Splash. And there is like my little rainbow of Northern Lights. Wouldn't it be gorgeous if it did look like this? Oh my word. So look how pretty that is. Now I have the color swiping up. And then when I bring back in, my little castle with my church, it's going to look gorgeous behind it. So let me go ahead and grab that piece and show you. And look how pretty that is. Okay, when I start to giggle, that means I really like my card. So, this is a giggle fest for me. Thank God I do like voiceovers and you didn't really hear like the squeal that I did. It would have been a little bit annoying, but I was quite happy with the way that this turned out. Look how pretty that is. And I don't even have to color up anything. I'm leaving all of that as a nice black and white contrast. No color to it. I just want the color to be saturated at the top of the card. But I do want to bring in a sentiment. So I'm going to use that Have a Beautiful Christmas because, this is going to be one beautiful card. And I want to do that in the rainbow colors as well. So let me show you how I'm going to do that. I'm going to bring back in my mini Misty again, and I'm going to place that die cut piece tucked right into the corner. Now this is a little tip. I could not find my grid to save my life, to make sure that my sentiment was going to be lined up. So I have a piece of acetate that I think it's been left over from like a previous package that I had. And I like to grab that acetate sometime and slip it into my Misty before I end up pressing down my sentiment. This just kind of helps me not get anything on that panel before I stamp. So as you can see, I place it right on top of the image, and then I'm going to place the sentiment down. Now this kind of gives me like a little wiggle room. Excuse the top of my head. I'm actually standing looking over this right now just to see if I can line that up. Now, the beauty of this is if I would have stamped this right now and it wasn't straight, I would totally wreck this card. Again, it's just paper. I could have redid it, but we're making a tutorial and we don't want to do that. I'm going to come in with black ink. And this is just to kind of test where that sentiment is. And if I like the placement of it, if I had stamped this on the card, like I said, I would be done. But because I'm using that piece of acetate, I can see I might want to shift this a little bit. So now I can just clean off that piece of acetate. I can go ahead and remove it. And now I know that, okay, where I have that lined up, it's going to work. I think it's going to be okay now. I'm going to clean off the black ink, and I'm going to one more time put that acetate sheet in there, because now I'm second guessing myself. Now I'm like, I don't think I like it there. So now you're really going to see all the silver wisdom sparkle in my hair. But I am standing up just to make sure I can get this straight, because once again, I cannot find my grid transparency sheet. I have no clue where it is. If you guys were to see my craft room right now with all these tutorials, whew, y'all, it's a little bit crazy. Now I'm going to come back in with those colors, and I'm going to do them in rainbow colors, just like I did the streaks at the top of the paper. I'm going to make my sentiment the same way. So I'm starting with that red hot. Then I'm going to bring in my lemon drop. One more time, I'm going to go to the end, and I'm going to do that teal, because remember, I need to see how much I'm going to have in between. And now I can come back in with those other two colors. I can come in with that summer splash, and then I can finish off with that sour apple. And once again, I'm going to know that I'm going to have all of those colors that are on the top of my card. So I can go ahead and press that down, and I'm lightly pressing. I'm not really pressing too hard because I don't want this sentiment to kind of like bloom out. And voila, look how pretty that is. Oh, what a beautiful sentiment. I love making rainbow sentiments. I really need to do it more often because it is a pretty special card. All right, you can go ahead and get that out of the way. And then I will bring in my striped piece, and look how gorgeous that is. Such a simple card. Now, I'm just going to put this on a white card base. But while I'm doing that, I'm going to share a little bit with you. I was on Christina Warner's live the other night, and we were just discussing like how the color combos guide came about. Now, if you guys have not seen that, I'll make sure to put a link below. You can find that on both Christina's blog and my blog, but you might want to check that out. It was such an inspirational way to collab with her, and I think we might be committed now. You might have to keep doing some of these ink combo guides. I mean, it's a fantastic resource to make your holiday cards, but you can also use these colors for non-holiday cards, because we do have some non-traditional, i.e. just like this card is a very non-traditional color palette for Christmas. And that's why I like doing these color combos, is because sometimes we're so with the traditional of the red and the green. I like to think outside the box and bring in totally different colors. And in that guide, you'll see those color palettes. And also in the rest of my tutorials, you're also going to see me use all of those color palettes. So for every video that I do this year, I'm actually pulling one of those combos. Great thing about the combo guide, it has a list of several ink companies. So you're just not limited to one ink company. So you can mix and match if you have to, but it's a fantastic resource for you to have. All right, I am just putting on some foam tape here. I did cut it down to be a little bit thinner. And I'm just making sure to place that all the way around. I do want a good contact with this and like no gap. So I did go a little bit heavy-handed with it, but it's okay. Now, before I place that down, I am going to use a little bit of glue. And I like to use the glue when I'm doing this tape, just so I have a little bit of wiggle room to place that down. If I don't, I'm going to stick directly to the paper. Sometimes if you put this glue down on top of the foam tape, it gives you a little bit of a slide on your card, and it makes it a little bit easier to place down. So once I have that down, as you can see, this was a super easy card to make, right? And it's so beautiful, no coloring required. However, I'm going to show you how to add a little bit more color if you want to in another design for this. So I'm coming back in again with a piece of white cardstock, and I'm going to do some stenciling this time. This is the Confetti Stencil from MFT. And I thought this would be very pretty to do almost like a bokeh. I think that's how you pronounce it. Bokeh kind of background. This stencil pack is two stencils. So you have like an A stencil and a B stencil. And I'm starting with the A stencil. I just lined that up onto my card panel, and then I'm just using some purple tape to hold it in place. Now I am going to come right back in with those same colors because again, I want to use that pretty rainbow-esque color palette. I will start again with the Red Hot, and I'm going to kind of go across this, maybe in like a wonky kind of diagonal. So I'm going to come in first with that gorgeous red, and then I'm going to move right into that yellow. I'm doing the same exact way that I did pretty much my stripes, but this time I'm just blending it through this stencil. I'll grab another blending tool, tap off some of that ink, and then I can come right over. And again, I'm mixing that red and that yellow, so that's going to give me a pretty shade of orange. One more time, I'm going to skip over the green. I'm going to go back to that darker teal because again, I don't want to miss this when I get all the way across this card and realize I didn't have enough space for it. So I'm tapping off the excess color onto my glass mat, and then I can bring that in. Now I know I can kind of gauge that I still have enough room to add that lighter blue and the green. Now these two blues, once you put them on top of each other, they kind of look alike. One is a tad bit lighter, but I didn't want to skip the color. I wanted to make sure I kept it in there. And then I can come up with that sour green right in the middle. Again, I'm just kind of going in like a wonky little diagonal across the card. But once I lift this up, it's going to be so pretty. I think this might be one of my favorite cards I've made so far. I'm not sure. We'll see by the end of the series. I'm just going back through, making sure I blend everything out. And when I pull back that stencil, look how gorgeous. It just kind of looks like, you know, bubbles. Now I'm coming in with layer stencil number 2. Now with this one, I'm not going to come in as heavy-handed with the ink. I just wanted to have like a lighter feel to the card. And remember, you do not have to always use stars on your holiday cards or, you know, snowflakes on your holiday cards. Pull out those confetti stencils. I mean, we can still have a party and it's Christmas, right? How I'm going to do this second layer is I'm just going to grab what's left on my mat and on the brush. And I'm doing very, very light strokes because I want this layer to be lighter than that last layer. So I'm not trying to go in heavy-handed. As you can see, I'm barely taking that ink to the paper. I'm just adding in the lightest and the faintest of this color. Again, I'm not going back into the ink. I'm not going to the ink cube. I'm just grabbing what is either on the brush or what is on my glass mat. But you can definitely already see how light-handed I'm going with this. It's a very soft and almost muted look compared to the boldness of the other ones. And that's exactly what I wanted. I really wanted like that bokeh look. And then I would come in very light-handedly with that green. And as you can see, I didn't even tape down this stencil very well. I'm actually just holding it with my hand. Now, once I pull this back, you're going to see how gorgeous the heavy hand and the lighter hand looks. And look how pretty, and it kind of like overlaps the color. It's absolutely gorgeous. All right, let's get back into the bottom part of this card. Now this time I am going to do some coloring and I'm going to kind of match that. But I need to see where I want my little cottage to be. Like this is my winter cabin. So we had a castle with a church. Okay, and this is my winter cabin. So I want to make sure that I leave enough space towards the bottom for a sentiment, but also cut off enough of the top that I can really have that confetti look or that bokeh. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. Bokeh kind of look at the top. I'll bring that right back into my Misty. I'll line that up. And again, I'm just going to stamp this down in the Memento Tuxedo black ink. The paper, by the way, on both of these cards is Neenah Solar White. Again, I'll make sure to link all of the products down below. Now, if you're interested to see any of my other cards that I made for my card series, I think I've been doing this since 2015. I'll also have those links below. And I do want to mention that there's going to be a giveaway during this series because I announced on Christina's live the other day that I am over 10,000 followers, and I greatly, greatly appreciate each and every one of you. So I am going to be doing quite a big giveaway. So make sure you're watching the series because it's going to pop up in one of the videos. Now I'm going to take the coordinating die for this stamp and do the same thing. I'm going to do that partial die cutting. Very simple to do. Again, like I said, I used to be totally paranoid of doing this, a little bit skittish, but I watched a lot of Jennifer's video, which then gave me the courage to go ahead and try it. So again, I'm just going to cut the top part of this and leave the bottom. But I do need to move that purple tape. I just realized I'm going to end up cutting into that tape and I don't want that. So I'll just shift my tape to the bottom of the card. I have my plates again. I'm lining up my plates so you guys can kind of see how it is. See, one part is there and there's nothing on the top. So that's how we're going to get that partial die cutting. Now I can lay this into my machine. Again, I'm not quite sure of the plates that you would use for like a Gemini or a Big Shot because I'm only using my Spellbinders Platinum 6 for this. So I can run that through my die cutting machine. And once again, I'm just going to have the top part cut from the bottom. I'll bring back in those Fisker scissors. And again, I'm just cutting it so it kind of looks like a snowdrift off to the side. If you wanted to go straight with this, you totally could. But I just wanted to kind of make it look like there's still snow there. So I'll go ahead and snip that off. And now look how pretty this would look if I kept it black and white. It would still be a striking card. But because there's a lot of white space on this one, I did want to add some coloring. So I'm just going to do this very quickly with my Copic markers. I just grabbed a couple colors that I knew would match the inks I was using. I am going to zoom in so you can kind of quickly see this coloring. I'm not doing any shading. I'm not being a fancy pants with this one. I'm just adding in the color. Now, I wanted to make sure that I pulled in this color palette onto this image because, like I said, there was a lot of white space. And I wanted to make sure to eat up that white space. With the ones that had the stripe, it was a lot of color, right? So I didn't have to worry about maybe too much white space competing. So this was simple coloring. You could totally die cut out a bunch of these in advance and then sit on your couch and just color these up. And again, I always talk about mass producing. So if you're going to mass produce, do all your coloring at once, do all your stripes at once, do all your die cutting at once. So then everything just becomes like an assembly line. That is the quickest way to do your holiday cards. And to me, I would have to be honest, it is less stressful for me. I don't like to be stressed in card making, but I do make cards for family and friends. And I don't want to stress over that. I want them, when they get the card, they feel the good energy that I put into making the card. All right, I'm just going to add a little bit of a baby blue to turn that snow into having like a little bit of a reflection. So look how pretty that is. I have all the color at the top and this simple coloring at the bottom. Again, I didn't do any shading on this. This was just simple one color Copic coloring. I'll bring back in that image and I can stamp out the sentiment. And I'm going to do it the same exact way because I really love that rainbow look. I am going to make sure to clean off my stamp. Even though I'm using the same colors, I do just want to make sure that I clean that off before I bring it over to this colored piece. Again, if I wrecked this, it wasn't a lot that I needed to color, but I just want to make sure I get this lined up. Again, once again, I'm so sorry for those, wisdom sparkles that I have going on in my head, but I really needed to stand up. One of these days, I'm going to figure out how to keep my head out of these shots. I don't know how I'm going to do that, but if you ever see them, just ignore the head. Just totally ignore that. I'm coming back in with the red, and then I'm going to the yellow. Again, I'm going to skip back to that teal because I want to make sure I have enough room to add that teal in. And then I can go back to the lighter blue, and then I can go to the green. You know, a lot of the times when we're doing rainbows, we end up running out of space for like purples and magentas. So this is a good way. Go to the end and then work your way back. Once again, I can just close down my MISTI lid and lightly tap, just like a little tap dance across the letters. That's all. I don't need a lot of pressure for this. And then I can lift that up. And once again, we have a beautiful rainbow sentiment. I really need to do this more often. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and put this card together just like we did the last one. I'm using a white card base, and most of my cards during this series, I believe, are the standard A2 size because I just think they're easier to mail. And in my opinion, maybe just easier to mass produce. And it is my go-to card size. I will line this up. Now, some of you might be asking, well, why didn't you just do the stenciling on your card base? I could have did that. I didn't think about it at the time. But again, if I messed that up, I didn't want to ruin a card base. So once again, I'll flip that over, and I'm going to go ahead and use some foam tape to pop this up. Some more tips if you wanted to on this card. You can totally add a little bit of glitter on this. You can add a little bit of sequins if you wanted to fill in between the confetti. I just wanted to keep this card a little bit simpler. So one, I don't have to pay for the extra postage. And this way I can give this to a male or female because I don't have like any extra on it. Now I did show in day one card that I did use some glitz glitter gel, and that was a masculine card. So you might want to check that out, and I'll show you how to use that glitz glitter gel and still pull off a masculine card. I lined that up once again with the foam tape, and I do want to make sure that I bring in that glue, because remember I said that glue gives me a little bit of a slide on that tape in order not to have it stick right away. I am using the Hero Arts Precision Glue, and this is in the extra large. I can go ahead and press that down. And then look, we have two absolutely gorgeous cards. I love these cards. These cards made me happy. They really, really did. And it's such a different way or different spin to do your holiday cards with, like, you know, a rainbow. And who doesn't love a rainbow? Okay, that's the cards for today. So colorful and bright. All right, everybody. Day 4 is in the books. Day 5 is coming up. I will see you on Monday. Have a fantastic weekend and be sure to stay safe.